The billionaire CEO came home early that night, and what he saw in the janitor's small kitchen froze him to the core. But before I take you into this unbelievable story of secrets, heartbreak, and hope, you need to stay with me till the end, because what happens in that kitchen will leave you speechless. And if this story touches your heart even a little, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because stories like this remind us that sometimes, the people who seem to have the least are the ones who carry the most powerful truths. Ethan Caldwell was the kind of man everyone in the city knew by name. At only 40, he was one of the youngest billionaire CEOs, running a massive tech empire that stretched across continents. He was known for his sharp suits, his cold stares in meetings, and his ruthless ability to turn failing companies into gold mines. But no one really knew Ethan beyond the headlines. Behind the wealth, the empire, and the private jets was a man who was often lonely, who carried wounds he never let anyone see. His parents had died when he was still in college, and since then, his life had been about numbers, deals, and growth. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Ethan decided to come home earlier than usual. Normally, he stayed in the office until midnight, but something in his chest told him he needed to leave. His mansion was huge, with polished marble floors, chandeliers, and walls lined with priceless art. But when he walked in, it didn't feel alive. His footsteps echoed in the silence. He loosened his tie and headed toward the kitchen, hoping to grab a glass of water. That's when he noticed something odd. The door to the service quarters was slightly open, and there was a faint glow of light coming from the janitor's kitchen. Ethan frowned. His janitor, Maria, was always discreet. She was in her late 30s, quiet, polite, never speaking unless spoken to. She had been working for him for almost 2 years, cleaning up after staff dinners and ensuring the house ran smoothly. He barely knew anything about her, where she lived, if she had family, or why she always looked like she carried the weight of the world on her shoulders. Ethan stepped closer, drawn by the soft murmuring he heard from inside. It wasn't until he stood in the doorway that his breath caught in his throat. In Maria's tiny kitchen, with barely enough space for a table, sat 2 little children, maybe 6 or 7 years old. Their clothes were worn, their hair a little messy, but their eyes sparkled as Maria placed bowls of soup in front of them. The children giggled, and Maria smiled, the first genuine smile Ethan had ever seen on her tired face. For a moment, he couldn't move. Why were their children here? Who were they? Why hadn't she ever mentioned them? Eat slowly, Maria whispered to them. This has to last until tomorrow. Ethan's chest tightened. He stepped forward, and the sound of his shoe against the tile made Maria spin around. Her face went pale, and her hands trembled as the ladle clattered into the pot. Mr. Caldwell, I can explain, she stammered, shielding the children instinctively as though afraid he might take them away. Ethan raised a hand, his voice low. Who are they, Maria? Her lips quivered. My children. Sophia and Daniel. The billionaire CEO, who had faced boardrooms of men ready to tear him apart, who had spoken to presidents and investors without flinching, found himself speechless in front of a trembling woman and her children. He swallowed hard. Why didn't you tell me? Tears filled Maria's eyes. Because I was afraid you'd fire me. I couldn't risk it. After my husband abandoned us, I lost everything. The bills, the rent, we had nowhere else to go. I knew if I asked for help, people would turn us away. So I hid them here. I clean your house all day, and at night, I feed them what little I can manage. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean to deceive you, I just didn't know where else to go. Her voice cracked, and in that tiny kitchen, the silence pressed heavy. Ethan looked at the children, who stared up at him wide-eyed, clutching their spoons as though afraid he might snatch their meal away. He remembered himself at their age, hungry, cold, after his parents' accident, left with relatives who never cared. He had sworn he'd never feel that helpless again, and here were these children, living exactly what he had once endured. Ethan pulled out a chair and sat slowly, his expensive suit brushing against the worn wooden table. "Maria," he said quietly, "you should never have had to hide them. And they should never have had to live in fear." Maria's tears spilled, and she covered her face with her hands. "Please, don't make us leave. I'll work for free, I'll..." "Stop." Ethan's voice softened in a way it rarely did. "You don't need to beg. You've been carrying this burden alone for too long." He turned to the children. "Sophia, Daniel, do you like pancakes?" The little boy's eyes lit up. "Yes." Ethan smiled faintly. "Good. Tomorrow morning, we're making pancakes together." Maria gasped. "Sir, you don't have to." "I want to." His tone was firm, but not harsh. That night marked the beginning of something none of them expected. Over the next days, Ethan found himself coming home earlier, sometimes even skipping late-night meetings, just to sit with the children. He read them stories, taught them little math tricks, and listened to their laughter echoing in the mansion halls that had always been so empty.